This is another important holistic approach for analyzing a company and using specific lenses to better understand how different player clusters dominate the organization. Professor Mintzberg is using this approach for recognizing different structure typologies or configurations, affecting basically all aspects of running a business. After all, that's why we believe organizational design is a more suitable term to describe the process of how to up the organization for sure. As you can see from the picture below, we are going to explain different player clusters like strategic apex, middle line, operating core, techno-structure and support stuff, while later on imply structure typologies or configurations as well. Operating core. Obviously, people within this cluster are focused on transforming inputs into outputs. However, this is a very narrow view. From the standpoint of an organization, we should prefer a broader perspective, including securing, delivering and storing inputs needed for the production process. Already mentioned transformation process of inputs into outputs, output storing and their distribution, and providing direct support along the mentioned value chain. For example, vertically integrated oil company might have its own arm specialized for maintenance of drilling rigs, or construction workers used to prepare the field for oil exploration or intervene in case of emergency accidents like broken pipelines, leaking storages of crude oil, and similar. This broader view helps us to think about the core operations, or what business are we in question. For example, vertically integrated oil companies might differ in their own approaches. Some of them have their own fleet of trucks to supply a fuel station network, while others rely on service providers coming from the market. Either you are going to incorporate these kinds of activities within your operations or not is a subject not just of your own strategy and direction, but organizational design focused on building more or less flexibility, resilience and overall control. Great topic for potential restructuring issues for sure. On the other hand, in small companies with relatively simple range of activities, basically the entire company consists of operating core, while the most common integrative role is played by the leader himself, while all employees are being used to mutual adjustments as a prime way of coordination between each other. Strategic apex. In small companies, they're just the leader, usually entrepreneur or the founder. However, as the company keeps growing, the need for strengthening strategic apex arises. From just CEO and probably a secretary and some assistants, there is a gradual need for other helpful arms like middle line managers, bunch of analysts within a techno-structure or other support staff. The key question is why? Basically, we can sum up all the duties of a CEO into 3 core activities: setting direction, direct supervision or control, and dealing with organizational boundaries. Setting direction. Here is the focus on creating a strategy and its execution. Later on, we will see in details that this topic is not just about strategy content, but the entire approach the leader is taking in terms of aligning strategy with individual behaviors of employees, ranging from strategy formulation till its implementation. Direct supervision or control. This is a logical next step. Since a CEO is getting more and more distant from being an executor, his approach in control is getting more and more indirect, forcing him to hire additional guns and create different tools and bodies to help him to measure performances throughout the company and run a show. Dealing with organizational boundaries. Here is the focus on going outside the company and developing and maintaining relationships with the players from the environment, from signing some important contracts, lobbying, being well informed about market trends and activities undertaken by competition, and similar. As you can see, as complexity is growing, demands on a CEO are exponentially booming, putting pressure on him to add more and more activities within the same 24 hours per day. That's why up the organization is becoming a must, where other players from middle line, techno-structure and support are taking even more and more tasks. And here the real fun begins. Middle line. Of course, midline managers serve as an extended hand or a bond between operating line and strategic apex, based on a borrowed or formal authority coming from the leader. Simply said, a single manager can directly supervise 5 to 10 employees, as a general rule of thumb, depending on many factors. And that's why these first administrative workers are hired and create a set of organizational layers or hierarchy depending on the company size. Their purpose is to control and coordinate, to serve as a sort of a transmitter of information and directions of what's going on, up and down. In some cases, they might even have a power for decision making and resources allocation on their own. Yet, these layers make the leader alienated from the crowd, meaning employees from the operating line, forcing the leader to start developing techno-structure as well. Techno-structure. This is another arm of administration usually known as bureaucrats, since they have nothing to do with operations. Actually, they're removed from them. They are analysts in nature, and their role is to increase efficiency within other parts of the organization by designing operations, planning systems, changing them, training people who actually do the job on the ground, and similar. They observe operations and middle line from the side, and then create different instruments how to tilt the company and adjust it with a changing environment. Standardize the work process by creating certain procedures and similar. Although many people do not like bureaucrats or technostructure, have in mind that they have certain advantages and disadvantages for sure. For example, in case of accidents at the exploitation oil field, there must be some kind of safety procedures like what to wear, who is doing what, who to call the first, etc. Simply, there is no time to think and invent a wheel, just do it according to the manual. Or, in a large company, you somehow have to communicate strategy and cascade the message who is doing what, when, what is the budget, project dynamics and similar. Oral form of a strategy is not sufficient anymore. It has to be packed in some sort of documents that selected people can make themselves familiar with. Or, in case of too many formal steps, committees and similar, it's starting to be exhausting to launch new initiatives, killing the entrepreneurial spirit within a company and similar. Basically, all other parts of the company are crying for debureaucratization. That's why we are going to pay a lot of attention on this cluster of employees and their activities and instruments they create throughout the course, meaning within each of McKinsey's 7S: structure, strategy, share values, systems, style, staff, and skills. As a rule of thumb, we can group them at 3 types of employees. Work study analysts focused on standardizing work processes. Planners and controllers who are focused on standardizing outputs or performance, and personnel analysts who are focused on standardizing skills of the workers coming in and doing the job. Support staff. Most companies have other support out of technostructure, like cafeteria within large manufacturing firms, legal department, PR, mailroom, payroll, and similar. This cluster of employees is significantly different compared to the technocrats. They are not focused on standardizing work of others or to give advice to management, but serve specific needs of the company that exceeds regular operations. Although most of the services might be bought on the market when needed, companies usually prefer to have them within in order to increase control, convenience, or sometimes even speed. Depending on the most dominant cluster of employees and preferred way of coordination, Professor Mintzberg defined the following types of organizational typologies or configurations. Simple structure based on direct supervision where strategic apex is the key. Machine bureaucracy based on standardization of work processes where technostructure dominates. Professional bureaucracy based on standardization of skills and where operating core dominates. Divisional form based on standardization of outputs and where middle line dominates. And adhocracy based on mutual adjustments where support staff may have a very significant role. For sure, we are going to explain them all in details within a section focused on organizational structure.